Chapter 2776. She looked at the child who was laughing happily in her arms with a smile and said, "You are so cute and fat. You must be more adorable if you wear a belly band." "Well, I've decided. I'll find some good materials and ask Ling Shuang to make two for you." Xianyuan Mose looked at her holding the child and talking to herself. He could not help but twitch his mouth and said, "He is so young. He won't understand even if you tell him." Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at him and said, "What do you mean he won't understand? If you yell at him, he will cry immediately. Do you believe it? Isn't that normal? Not to mention a child, even an adult could not withstand his anger." After a while, the carriage stopped. The coachman said, "Master, Yama Lord, we've arrived at the byway building." "Well." Mose responded and got out of the carriage first. He stood aside to help Fengjiu lift the curtain and asked, "Do you need me to hold the child?" "It's okay. I can hold him," Fengjiu said, got out of the carriage and walked into the building with him. The carriage retreated to the side, and Ling Shuang followed them into the wing room on the second floor of the byway building. Thinking that Fengjiu might not eat well outside during this period, Xianyuan Mose ordered a table full of her favorite dishes. "Eat more." He put some dishes in her bowl. After a while, the small bowl was piled up like a small hill. Fengjiu handed the child to Ling Shuang. Then he picked up the chopsticks and said, "Enough. Don't take too much." One of them was eating, and the other was taking dishes. Most of the time, Fengjiu was eating, and Xianyuan Mose was taking dishes. Seeing that Fengjiu almost finished eating, Xianyuan Mose asked, "Did you go to Mo Chen's place last night?" "Yes, I took the lotus seed and asked him. He said that the lotus seed was not the ancient golden lotus, but it should be related to the ancient golden lotus. He said that it was an excellent thing." Fengjiu said as he ate, "I even gave him a lotus seed." "Are you still resting at his place?" Xianyuan Mose said sourly. "Yes." "Who asked you to make me angry?" Fengjiu glanced at him, put down his chopsticks, and drank a cup of wine. "I didn't plan to come back so early, but who knew that he kept chasing me away? I slept in the guest's room for the whole night, but for some reason, I couldn't fall asleep." Hearing this, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, and his deep voice carried a smile. "Tonight, I'll sleep with you. My hand will be your pillow. You'll definitely be able to sleep soundly." Hearing this, Fengjiu held back his smile and lightly sighed. I've been alone these past few days, and I've already gotten used to being alone. I suddenly feel that if there's another person in the bed, I won't be able to sleep well." She looked at him and said with a serious expression, "Also, we haven't gotten married yet. Sleeping with you is really damaging to my reputation. I feel that it's better if we live separately. Either way, your Ling residence is right next to my Feng residence." "No." Xianyuan Mose's face darkened and said, "We're already engaged. We're only missing the wedding ceremony and the wedding night." "That's right. I feel that although we're engaged, the day of our wedding is still far away." As she spoke, she looked at him and asked, "When do you think we'll get married?" "As long as you want, any time is fine." It was clearly him who had been waiting for her to get married, but who knew that the wedding would be delayed again and again. Chapter 2777. Hearing his words, Fengjiu sighed softly. "Believe it or not, if we get married, not to mention the group of people who have designs on my ancient green lotus, even the people of the demon race will definitely take the opportunity to cause trouble. I really don't want all the relatives and friends who will come to our wedding to be in danger because of this. I also don't want our wedding to become a good opportunity for those people to take action." How could she not want them to get married as soon as possible? Hold a grand wedding and invite all their friends and family to attend. Give them their blessings. However, she also knew that if they really held a wedding, things would not go as they wished. Xianyuanmos looked at her deeply when he heard her words. It turned out that she had thought about it before, but she thought too much. She thought about all the things that might happen. He pondered deeply. If he wanted to eliminate all the hidden dangers that she was worried about, then he had to become the strongest in the world. He had to become a supreme expert who could destroy the world with a flick of his finger. What are you thinking about? Fengjiu waved his hand in front of him. Seeing that he was thinking about something, he said, the food is getting cold, hurry up and eat. We'll go to the night market later and then go home. Hearing this, Xianyuanmos nodded. All right. He didn't say anything else and continued to eat. After the meal, they sat for a while, drank a cup of tea, paid the bill, and got up to leave. Ling Shuang took the child's place and followed them. After they left the building, Fengjiu carried the child and walked with them to the main street. Let's buy some toys for little Hao. Fengjiu stopped in front of a stall. He picked up some toys and looked at them. In the end, he picked some for Ling Shuang to pay for and left. The three of them walked down the street. When they passed by a pancake stall, Fengjiu stopped and said to Ling Shuang behind him, buy 2 pancakes. Ling Shuang was slightly surprised. Was his master not full? Why do you still want pancakes? Although she was puzzled, she did not ask. Instead, she took out some money and bought 2 pancakes. Xianyuanmos glanced at Fengjiu. No one knew what he was thinking, but the corners of his lips curled up slightly. A trace of a smile flashed across his face. His gaze swept past the front and he continued walking forward. The three of them walked until they came to a place at the corner of the street. Fengjiu suddenly stopped and looked at the figure in beggar clothes sitting at the corner of the street. The weather is good tonight, and the people on the street are lively. Fengjiu's voice rang out. When this voice reached the beggar's ears, he quickly raised his head and looked in the direction of the voice in surprise. Master, Ghost Doctor, Ling Shuang. He rolled and crawled over, wanting to pull on the corner of his master's clothes, but felt that his hands were very dirty, so he stood in front of them with a silly smile. Seeing Hui Lang suddenly appear in front of him, Xianyuanmos' eyes flashed with understanding. Ling Shuang was slightly surprised. This was Hui Lang. How did he end up like this? He felt strange and sized him up. Seeing that his spiritual power was sealed and his face was bruised and swollen, if he wasn't familiar with him, he wouldn't have recognized him. Fengjiu smiled and looked at the gray wolf in front of her who was dressed like a beggar. She said, Who are you? Don't shout, we don't know you. Chapter 2778. How could you possibly be Hui Lang? Even though Hui Lang isn't good-looking, he doesn't have a swollen and bruised face like yours. Fengjiu pursed her lips as she spoke, playing with the child in her arms. Hearing this, Hui Lang couldn't help but stare blankly. Why didn't the ghost doctor recognize him? Why? He stared blankly, unable to understand even now. Look at you, your hands and feet are fine. Why don't you go find something to do? Fengjiu glanced at him, shaking her head as she spoke. Hui Lang opened his mouth, wanting to speak, but he didn't know what to say to her. Fengjiu looked at him blankly standing there and couldn't help but smile. Are you hungry? When Hui Lang heard this, he hurriedly nodded. I'm hungry, I'm hungry. I've been hungry all day and haven't eaten anything. Master, ghost doctor, take me back. I think I must have done something wrong. Otherwise, Master and the ghost doctor wouldn't punish me like this. He scratched his head as he spoke. Even though his brain wasn't as sharp as Ying Yi's, he wasn't stupid. Seeing the two of them like this, how could he not understand that he must have done something wrong? Who knows when he offended the ghost doctor? Otherwise, how could he have ended up as a beggar? Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. A beggar. That's right, why did he become a beggar? Didn't he just meet a little beggar yesterday and say a few words? Thinking of this, he was instantly dumbfounded. He finally understood why he was sent to become a beggar. It turns out that he really did offend the ghost doctor. Thinking of what he said when he met the little beggar yesterday, then looking at the ghost doctor and master in front of him, he even had the heart to die. Why was his reaction so slow? Only now did he remember. Seeing his expression change, Fengjiu smiled and said to the Leng Shuang behind her, "Aren't there still 2 pancakes? Give them to him." Hearing this, Leng Shuang stepped forward and handed the 2 pancakes that were still steaming hot to Hui Lang. Leng Shuang finally realized that the 2 pancakes his master bought were for Hui Lang. Holding the 2 pancakes, Hui Lang looked at them with a long face and said, "Master, ghost doctor, I know I was wrong. Can you let me go back earlier?" At this point, Xianyuan Mose, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke up, "Since you're allowed to be a beggar here, then be a beggar for a few days. Just treat it as training." As soon as he finished speaking, he left with Fengjiu and the others, ignoring Hui Lang. Holding the pancakes, Hui Lang watched as they left in front of him, leaving him standing at the corner of the street. If it wasn't for the 2 warm pancakes in his hands, he wouldn't have believed that they had just been here. Fengjiu played with the child on the road. The 3 of them didn't take a carriage, but walked leisurely. However, when they reached the corner of the street, they saw that there were many onlookers in front of them. Faintly, the voices of those onlookers could be heard. "That girl should be from outside. It's rare to see her. She's also unlucky to come out alone and meet the one-eyed man on the street. No one dares to provoke this one-eyed man in this area. I think that girl looks familiar, as if I've seen her before." Chapter 2779. That's right. That girl is not weak either. Fengjiu and the other 2 paused when they heard what the crowd was saying. They looked towards the crowd, but their line of sight was blocked by the people in front of them. They could not see clearly what was going on. Fengjiu said to Leng Shuang, "Let's go take a look." Why did she feel that these people might be talking about Yun Shuoxin? Leng Shuang nodded slightly and walked forward, squeezing through the crowd. When she saw the scene in front of her, her eyes flashed, and she quietly retreated. She glanced at Xianyuan Mose, then looked at her master and said, "Master, the girl they are talking about is Miss Yun." Fengjiu's mouth twitched when she heard that. She had guessed correctly. Instinctively, she looked at Xianyuan Mose and said with a faint smile, "It's your junior sister." Xianyuan Mose's expression was normal as he said, "It's okay. She can protect herself with her strength. So we don't have to pay attention to her." Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and asked, "Since she can handle it, she doesn't need our help." Based on his understanding of Yun Shuoxin, the average person here could not possibly be her opponent. After all, she was not a weak woman. Her strength was at the top of her family's younger generation. If she could not even deal with such a person, then she would not be Yun Shuoxin. When she heard that, Fengjiu thought about it for a moment. Then, her eyes shifted and she said, "Although that's true, he is still our guest. It doesn't seem too good to let our guest face something like this." As she spoke, she handed the child to Xianyuan Mose and said, "I'll go take a look." Xianyuan Mose shook his head helplessly. He knew that she was someone who wanted to see the world in chaos. Fengjiu walked forward, and the crowd was suddenly pushed aside. They were about to turn around and curse, but when they saw that it was Ghost Dr. Fengjiu, they could not help but open their mouths and quickly move aside to make a path. When she came to the front, she saw Yun Shuoxin, who was dressed in white and had an outstanding appearance, standing in a corner with a cold expression. In front of her was a burly one-eyed man. The corners of Yun Shuoxin's lips curled up slightly. She swept her gaze around and looked at some of the rogue cultivators in the surroundings. There were about 10 of them in total. Adding the strength of the one-eyed man, they were more than enough to be a street bully. However, Yun Shuoxin's strength was at the immortal sage realm. She wasn't someone that could be defeated by ordinary people. Thinking of this, she crossed her arms in front of her chest and watched calmly. She wondered why this one-eyed man was so blind as to target Yun Shuoxin. What? Carry this little girl back for me. As the one-eyed man spoke, the corners of his mouth curled into an evil smile as he stared at the beautiful woman in white with a graceful figure. He was already thinking about what to do with this beauty after he carried her back. Boss, this woman doesn't look like a girl from an ordinary family. Won't it cause trouble if we really attack her? A rogue cultivator asked in a low voice. He felt that the woman in white did not show any fear even when surrounded by them, so he could not help but feel uncertain. Chapter 2780. A red mark slowly seeped out from the man's neck, and a faint smell of blood permeated the air. This scene gave the surrounding onlookers a fright, and they all retreated one after another. Some of them looked in horror at the white-clothed woman who had taken the man's life with a single move. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows. Seeing that Yun Shuoxin was looking at her, she walked forward with her sword in hand, ignoring the one-eyed man who had one eye wide open in shock. She came before Fengjiu and looked at Fengjiu as she said, "Ghost Doctor, I'm your guest. Are you going to watch your guest be bullied like this?" Fengjiu's lips curled slightly, and he said with a smile, "With Miss Yun's strength, it's more than enough to deal with these hooligans. It's rare to see Miss Yun's heroic appearance, so I naturally won't let go of this opportunity." Yun Shuoxin quietly looked at Fengjiu, and her eyes swept past her enchanting and beautiful face. She looked at Xianyuan Mose, who was walking forward with a child in his arms, and asked, "Does senior brother feel the same way?" Xianyuan Mose looked at her as usual, and then glanced at the corpses on the ground. He said in a low voice, "With your strength, these people won't be able to get close to you, so there's no possibility of you being bullied." Hearing this, Yun Shuoxin raised the sharp sword in her hand, and a ray of sword qi shot out from her hand. She didn't even turn around, and the ray of sword qi accurately struck the one-eyed man who was about to slip away. Bang! The one-eyed man didn't even have the chance to scream before he fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. His body twitched, and he stopped breathing. Yun Shuoxin lowered her eyes and put away the long sword in her hand. Her emotionless voice sounded softly, "Senior brother is right. How can these people be my match? With their strength, they won't be able to get close to me, but—" Her voice paused, and she raised her beautiful eyes to look at Xianyuan Mose. "Senior brother's indifference to me has hurt Shuoxin's heart. Does senior brother know that Shuoxin cares about senior brother?" Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose was stunned. He subconsciously looked at Fengjiu, afraid that she would misunderstand. Who knew that she would have such thoughts? She had never expressed such thoughts before, and he had never thought about it in that direction. Fengjiu played with the hair that fell in front of her chest, and her lips curled into a smile. She looked deeply at Yun Shuoxin, and said leisurely, "Miss Yun's confession in front of more than a dozen corpses on the ground. It's really shocking." As soon as Fengjiu's words came out, the stunned people around also came to their senses. That's right. This girl has an extraordinary temperament and is so beautiful. How could she do such a thing? You really can't judge a book by its cover. What's so strange? Didn't you see how she took those people's lives without even blinking her eyes? Although they were ruffians, she killed them in one move. No one else can do that. Yun Shuoxin didn't seem to hear the words around her, and her expression was normal. She looked at the expressionless Xianyuan Mose, and said softly, "Senior brother, I just couldn't control myself." Xianyuan Mose didn't say anything. He only frowned slightly, and looked at her deeply. Chapter 2781. Hearing these words, no matter how well-mannered Yun Shuoxin was, her expression still changed. She coldly glanced at Fengjiu, then looked at Xianyuan Mose, who had not spoken the entire time. She knew in her heart that this was just her wishful thinking, but so what if it was like this? Feng Zhou was right. Xianyuan Mo's was so outstanding. Her heart was in love with him, so what was strange about her not being able to control her feelings? This was like a man loving a woman's beauty, and a woman loving a man's excellence. Wasn't this very normal? For an outstanding woman like her, with her family's strength and appearance, how could she be interested in a normal man? Only someone like Xianyuan Mo's, who exuded the aura of a noble emperor, was worthy of her, Yun Shuoxin. So what if he loved the ghost Dr. Feng Zhou? She did not believe that she, Yun Shuoxin, who was outstanding in all aspects, would lose to Feng Zhou, who came from a small place. Senior brother. She looked at Xianyuan Mo's. Just as she was about to speak, she was interrupted by his words. You should move out of the Feng Manor. Xianyuan Mo said in a low voice. His gaze indifferently glanced at her. I will have someone prepare a new courtyard for you. He definitely would not allow a woman with ulterior motives to exist at his side. Even if this person was his junior sister, even if she had saved his life, it was still the same. Yun Shuoxin opened her beautiful eyes wide in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with hurt. Senior brother wants to chase me away. Senior brother promised to take care of me, but now you want to chase me away. Xianyuan Mo's furrowed his brow. It is not suitable for you to live in the Feng Manor. Even if he did not understand women's hearts, he could still hear how provocative her words were. Saying those words in front of Feng Zhou, she wanted to drive a wedge between the two of them. It was just that she had underestimated the feelings between him and Feng Zhou. The feelings that they had developed along the way were not something that could be stirred up with just a few words from her. Yun Shuoxin looked at him. Her eyes were filled with tears, which made her look a bit weak. Her voice faintly drifted out, Senior brother, if you won't let me live in the Feng Manor, then I can live in your manor. I am here alone. How can you bear to let me live outside by myself? Feng Zhou didn't say anything. He just looked at Yun Shuoxin with a faint smile. She was still wondering how long she could pretend. He didn't expect her to be unable to hold herself back after coming out alone tonight. However, it had to be said that Yun Shuoxin was indeed a rare beauty. Looking at the expression on her face, it was as if she had been wronged. Her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she stared at Xianyuan Mo's. If someone with weak willpower saw her like this, their heart would probably soften. Unfortunately, Mo's was not an ordinary person, and her extravagant hopes were destined to fail. Zhou, let's go back. Xianyuan Mo's retracted his gaze and did not look at Yun Shuoxin. Instead, he held the child who was blinking her clear eyes and eating her fist in one hand. He held Feng Zhou's hand with the other and led her away. Ling Shuang was a few steps behind them. When she turned around to leave, she looked at Yun Shuoxin and coldly said, Miss Yun, it is good for people to know their own limits. After saying this, she did not look at Yun Shuoxin, whose face had turned pale in an instant. Instead, she quickly followed her master's footsteps. Chapter 2782. Sitting in the carriage, Xianyuan Mo's looked at Feng Zhou, who was obviously in a good mood. He was a little confused, so he asked carefully, Zhou, are you happy that she confessed to me? He thought that she would be angry, but who would have thought that she was actually quite happy? Why was that? Hearing this, Feng Zhou glanced at him. Seeing that he was sitting up nervously, as if waiting for her answer, she said, What's there to be unhappy about? She likes you, which proves that I have good taste. You're outstanding. Especially since such an outstanding man was Feng Zhou's. Thinking of this, the corners of her lips curled up happily. Sigh, seeing that Yun Shuoxin's heart was broken and she couldn't get what she wanted, why was she so happy? Yes, it should be a bad taste. You're not angry. Xianyuan Mo's breathed a sigh of relief, but he was still a little confused. Angry? Feng Zhou raised his eyebrows. Why should I be angry? Just because she likes you. Seeing that he nodded with a slightly stunned expression, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Idiot! How could she forget that this was a piece of thousand-year-old ice, a piece of thousand-year-old ice that no one could get close to? Even though they had always been apart more than together, she never doubted that he would fall in love with another woman and treat her differently. When they were together, they rarely got angry or quarreled. It seemed that this time when she was sulking, he was a little worried that she would get angry again. She narrowed her eyes, looked him up and down, and said, "We didn't have a good chat this time. Your junior sister is from overseas, and you went there with your master. You even stayed with her family. Did something happen that I don't know about? You didn't tell me about it." Hearing this, Xianyuanmo's eyes flashed. This. Really? Fengjiu raised her voice and stared at him. It's a long story. I'll tell you in detail when we get back to the courtyard. He laughed bitterly and said helplessly. Hearing this, Fengjiu didn't ask any more questions. It seemed like there really was something she didn't know about. For Mo's to agree to stay here and take care of Yun Shuoxin, what could it be? She couldn't help but be curious. On the other side, the dozen or so corpses on the ground had been taken care of. Yun Shuoxin walked towards the Feng Manor as the night deepened. Thinking about what happened tonight, she couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Impulse is a bad thing. Even with her temperament, she was still provoked to the point of being impulsive. It could be seen that this ghost Dr. Fengjiu was indeed difficult to deal with. However, he wanted her to move out. How was she going to get out of this situation? Once Xianyuanmo said that, there was no turning back. What should he do? How could he break this stalemate? She thought to herself. Suddenly, she faintly heard a voice enter her ears. Immediately, she stopped walking towards the Feng Manor. She looked all around her and quietly retreated. She then followed the voice in the direction of the voice. Feng Manor in the courtyard, Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo were sitting in a room. She looked at Xianyuanmo, who had been drinking tea the entire time, and said, "Didn't you say that we'll talk about it after we get back to the manor? This Yun Shuoxin actually came for you, right?" Chapter 2783. Fengjiu glanced at him. "That's not what I want to know." Xianyuanmo was stunned for a moment. After calming down, he said, "She saved my life." Seeing her raise her eyebrows and look at him, waiting for his next words, he sighed softly. "It was because she saved my life that I promised to take care of her when she came with Master's letter." Hearing this, Fengjiu suddenly understood. So that's how it was. No wonder he, who didn't respect his master, would promise to take care of Yun Shuoxin. It turned out that there was something she didn't know. She saved your life when you were overseas. Were you injured? Or what? She frowned slightly and asked. When he came back, he didn't say anything. She also didn't know that he had an accident when he went out. At that time, the matter that I helped Master with was very troublesome. When we were overseas, we were even hunted down. At that time, I was seriously injured and had to hide from those people. Master found junior sister and sent me to their family to help cover for them. Speaking of this, he sighed softly. The force that chased us was very strong. At that time, when the Yun family protected me, they risked being exterminated. Moreover, at that time, I was infected with the golden heart corroding insect. It was junior sister who risked her life to find something to lure the golden heart corroding insect out for me. It was because of this that I was able to survive. How could he not know that he would never forget a person's kindness? However, he had always thought that Yun Shuoxin only saw him as her senior brother because of the friendship of fellow disciples. He didn't expect that. Fengjiu's heart couldn't help but rise when she heard this. Why didn't you tell me about such a dangerous thing when you came back? Golden heart corroding insect. That's a poison that burrows into the bones and blood. Moreover, to lure out the golden heart-corroding insect, it's necessary. Her voice paused and her expression changed slightly. For a moment, she didn't speak. The only way to lure out the golden heart-corroding insect is to use blood as a guide and add the golden heart-corroding insect's favorite 7-leaf tip. Xianyuan Mo said slowly. Looking at Fengzhou's expression, he knew that she had already thought of the difficulty Yun Shuoxin had in getting the medicine. The place where the 7-leaf tips grow must have extremely poisonous things, and there must be quite a lot of them. She looked at him with a complicated expression. Back then, she must have spent a lot of effort to get the guiding medicine goo for you. Xianyuan Mo pondered for a moment, then said, although I was heavily injured at that time and was in a semi-coma, my consciousness was still very clear. Thus, I knew that after junior sister drew out the golden heart erosion insect for me, she was bedridden for several days. At that time, I was recuperating in the Yun family for about half a month. Hearing this, Fengzhou looked at him deeply and said, why didn't you tell me that you encountered such danger outside? If you tell me that Yun Shuoxin once saved your life like this, no matter how much I hate her, I will still give her some face. I was also afraid that you would be worried. Moreover, my body had already recovered by the time I returned. Naturally, I didn't want to tell you and make you worry. He laughed softly and held her hand, saying, it's okay. Since you don't like her, then I will think of other ways to repay her kindness. Fengzhou furrowed her brows and pondered for a moment. This kind of kindness couldn't be repaid with ordinary things. Mo's was her man, and she naturally didn't want her man to owe another woman a favor that hadn't been repaid. Chapter 2784. I'll think of a way. I'll repay this favor for you. Fengzhou held his hand and said, if there's anything in the future, don't hide it from me. Hearing this, Mo Zai's heart warmed. I'm a man. How can I let you shoulder everything? Don't worry. I'll think of a way to repay this favor. He was a man. Naturally, he couldn't say that she had to shoulder his matters. Furthermore, he owed her, so he naturally had to repay it. He wanted to shelter her from the wind and rain and protect her for the rest of her life. Naturally, he couldn't let her shoulder everything. Protect her for the rest of her life, his heart trembled. With his current strength as a heavenly god, he could be considered a top powerhouse on this continent. However, if he wanted to become a powerhouse in this world, to become a powerhouse that everyone in this world feared, to be able to protect her for the rest of her life, he had to become even stronger. Otherwise, when they met an enemy stronger than them, they would fall into a dead end. When he thought of this, he looked at her. He looked at the person in his heart. Even if he couldn't bear to see her suffer so much and encounter so many difficulties and dangers along the way, even if he couldn't bear to see her fall and rise again on this path of cultivation, he still had to let her grope and crawl along this path. Only when she stood at the peak, only when her strength could dominate everything, only when her strength could kill all the powerhouses in the world, could she and he look down on this world and not fear anyone. Ah, Joe. His deep voice rang out. Fengzhou looked at him. Seeing his solemn and cold expression, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. This continent won't be our final stop. If we want to dominate everything and protect the people we want to protect, then we have to become even stronger until we can stand at the peak of this world. His voice paused for a moment, then he said, so, let's go cultivate together. The path of cultivation has 9 heavens. The 9 heavens are beyond the heavens, the path to immortality on the immortal ladder, the heaven and earth in the profound light sect, and the immortal island of Penglai. We have to go again. Hearing this, Fengzhou was slightly stunned. She didn't expect him to say something like this. After so long, this was the first time he said that they should cultivate together and become stronger together. You mean that we should go to the immortal island of Penglai and use the immortal ladder to go to the place behind that door to cultivate and increase our strength? Yes. He nodded and said, our strength may be the strongest here, but there are stronger people outside of us. If we want to be fearless of anyone, then we have to stand at the peak of this world. He looked at her deeply and said in a deep voice, I want to give you a grand wedding, so that everyone can share our happiness, so that you won't have to fear anyone in this world. I want you to live a worry-free life, and if you want to do all this, you have to become a supreme expert. Looking at the seriousness and determination in his eyes and listening to his words, Feng Zhou's heart shook violently. She didn't speak for a long time and just held his hand tightly until her heart gradually calmed down. Chapter 2785. But she blinked and smiled. The immortal ascension stairs will only appear in a year's time. Don't worry, we can settle everything here in a year's time. A year's time was more or less enough to arrange things. After all, they would have a long journey ahead of them. That's true. As she spoke, her heart skipped a beat. Then what about our son? To be honest, we still haven't figured out his background. If we leave him here, I won't be at ease. But if we bring him with us, I'm worried that no one will be able to take care of him. Moreover, if we don't reach the immortal emperor realm, we won't be able to reach the top of the immortal ascension stairs. It was because of this that she didn't go through the door directly. She could go, but what about them? Hearing this, Xianyuan stood up and gently knocked her head. Where's your usual cleverness? Let's not talk about that little guy. Even if you want to bring Ling Shuang, Ling Hua, and the others with you, you can do it too. Huh? She looked at him in confusion. She didn't understand. Seeing that she really couldn't figure it out, he couldn't help but smile and shake his head. Have you forgotten that you have a treasure of heaven and earth on you? It's a treasure of space that can contain life. Hearing this, Feng Zhou's eyes widened in shock. You're saying that we should bring them all into the space and then bring them there? Yes, we can use the space to bring them there. However, even if they're Ling Shuang, Ling Hua, and the others who are loyal to you, you can't let them know about your space. So even if you want to bring them into the space, you have to do it while they're unconscious. She had a treasure of space, and it wasn't an ordinary space. Even if they were her confidants, she couldn't let them know about it. Hearing this, Feng Zhou slapped her head. That's right. How could I be so stupid? I didn't think of this and was worried about it. I'm so stupid, so stupid. She slapped her head and suddenly laughed foolishly. How about this, if we go there, I can bring them all with me. At that moment, she was incomparably grateful for the gift her nominal master had given her back then. Xianyuan looked at her with amusement and said, then find a time to pick out the people you want to bring along and make preparations in advance. He paused for a moment before continuing, arrange everything as soon as possible. We'll find a time to go back and meet your parents and my father. We'll tell them about our plans so that they don't have to worry. Feng Zhou smiled and nodded. Don't worry. I'll arrange it as soon as possible. She looked at him, and her heart felt warm and sweet. She took a step forward, wrapped her arms around his waist, and buried her face in his chest. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. She knew everything. Hearing this, Xianyuan's eyes overflowed with tenderness. He hugged her with one hand and stroked her hair with the other. His low and magnetic voice was filled with unconcealable affection. Silly girl. Chapter 2786. As the night deepened, the two of them prepared to rest. Ling Hua, who was outside the courtyard, rushed in. Seeing that the lights were still on in the room, he immediately said, Master, Yama Lord, something has happened. When the two people in the room heard this, they couldn't help but look at each other. They walked out and saw that Ling Hua was covered in blood. Feng Zhou narrowed her eyes and asked, what happened? Ling Hua glanced at Xianyuan and said, Master, when Du Fan and I came back, we met Miss Yun not far from the main gate. At that time, she was covered in injuries and her steps were unsteady. Before we could get close, she fainted. At that time, someone seemed to be chasing her from behind. After seeing me and Du Fan, that person left in the dark. Seeing that she seemed to be seriously injured and had lost a lot of blood, we quickly brought her back. Du Fan is now sending her back to her courtyard. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's brows furrowed. His hands were clasped behind his back. No one knew what he was thinking. Fengzhou's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise when she heard this. There's actually someone in this city who can injure her and make her faint. She glanced at Xianyuan Mo's and said, "Let's go and take a look." Xianyuan Mo's nodded and walked with her towards Yun Shuoxin's courtyard. Leng Hua followed behind them and walked towards the backyard. When they arrived at the courtyard, Du Fan was already waiting there. When he saw them enter, he stepped forward and called out, "Ya my lord, master, she's already in the room." They nodded slightly and walked in. As soon as they entered the room, the strong smell of blood assaulted their nostrils. When they walked into the room and saw Yun Shuoxin lying on the bed, they were even more surprised. Yun Shuoxin's white clothes were almost dyed red by the blood. Her clothes were torn, and there were many wounds on her body. It was indeed a ghastly sight. Fengzhou stepped forward to check on her. After a long time, he withdrew his hand and said to Xianyuan Mo's, "Her internal injuries are not light. 2 of her left ribs are broken. Other than that, the rest are external injuries. Although there are many wounds on her body, they are not fatal. It's just that she has lost a lot of blood, her breathing is unstable, and her face is pale. She will need at least 10 days to half a month to recover." Xianyuan Mo's looked at Leng Hua and asked, "Didn't you see who attacked her? With her strength, it's impossible for an ordinary person to injure her to this extent. If they fought, it would definitely attract the attention of others. Go and order people to investigate. You must find the source of the problem." "Yes, sir." Leng Hua responded and then left. Du Fan, have Leng Hua come over and bandage her wounds. Fengzhou ordered Du Fan, who was standing to the side. "Okay." Du Fan also responded and left. After they left, Fengzhou looked at Xianyuan Mo's and asked, "Are you suspicious?" Xianyuan Mo's looked at him and nodded without denying it. "That's right. I suspect that the person who injured her to this extent might be from overseas. However, one thing is certain. The person's strength is comparable to Yun Shuoxin's." He walked around the room with his hands behind his back and said, "However, who is the person? We have to wait until she wakes up and ask her." He stopped and looked at Fengzhou. "Have the manner be more vigilant. If you have to go out sooner or later, let me go with you. It's better to be careful." Chapter 2787. The two chatted for a while in the room. Not long after, Ling Shuang came over. "Master, Yama God." Ling Shuang saluted the two. Smelling the scent of blood in the room, she looked inside. "Go help her bandage her wound. Then give her this pill." Fengzhou handed her a bottle and glanced at Xianyuan Mo's. This glance made Xianyuan Mo's feel a bit confused and asked, "What is it? Your junior sister has been sent back to her courtyard for so long, yet we haven't thought of stopping her bleeding. With this amount of blood, her body will be a bit weak when she recovers." She did not pay attention to it, but most probably did not expect it at all. That's right, how could a person who did not care about anything think of stopping her bleeding first even if it wasn't life-threatening? It was only when she, who was at the top of his heart, was injured that he would panic. Thinking of this, her eyes curved into a smile. Xianyuan Mo's did not know what she was thinking and only said, "Didn't you just say it? The wounds on her body are only small. They won't be a problem. It wasn't life-threatening." Before Lang Shuang came to bandage her, it was fine if she bled a bit. After all, to have him apply medicine for her, that was impossible. To have Feng Zhou apply medicine for her. That was even more impossible. She won't die. Bleeding a bit is fine. Feng Zhou said with a smile, let's go, let's go. Have Ling Shuang bandage her. We'll go back first. Hearing this, Xian Yuanmo's held her hand and walked back. On the way back, Feng Zhou said, she is currently injured and unconscious. Let's postpone her moving out. After all, she was the person who saved his life. In her current state, it was not suitable for her to move out of the Feng Manor. You can decide. Xian Yuanmo said, next, I will need to arrange some matters in the Yen Hall. I will be a bit busy. All right. I'll get someone to look after her. Suddenly, Xian Yuanmo stopped in his tracks, as if he was thinking about something. When Feng Zhou saw him like this, she stopped and looked at him quietly. After a while, she saw him look at her. You said that in addition to internal injuries, she also had 2 broken ribs. Feng Zhou blinked and nodded. Yes. Didn't I say it just now? She saw him frown slightly and asked, is there something wrong? Xian Yuanmo looked at her and sighed softly, during the time you weren't here, occasionally she would ask me to go out with her. She always knew when to advance and when to retreat. She never showed any affection for me. Naturally, I didn't think that way. I just thought that she treated me as her martial brother. His voice paused and his brows furrowed. His expression sank as he said, but after what she said on the street tonight, and seeing that she is injured and unconscious, the original plan to have her move out has been postponed. This has caused me to have a bold guess. Feng Zhou was also a smart person and understood what he meant. Hearing this, she was stunned. You mean, could it be that she became like this on her own? Xian Yuanmo replied with a frown. Once the seed of suspicion was planted, it was impossible to believe it again. Just like how he never thought that she would fall in love with him and came to his side with ulterior motives. Chapter 2788. She held his hand and said, her injury was caused by an external force. Moreover, the internal injury was located in a place where she couldn't injure herself. The external injuries on her body were also caused by an external force, so the injury wasn't deep. After saying this, she looked at his tightly knitted brows and asked, why do you suspect that she would do that? Xian Yuanmo saw that she was looking at him with a puzzled expression and said, Zhou, she's not an ordinary person. She comes from a top family. She has a good reputation overseas. She's about the same age as you, and her strength is already at the sage immortal level. I think it's possible that she would do something because she likes me. He held her hand and walked as he said, before this, I treated her differently. Other than the reasons you know, it was also because she is very outstanding in all aspects. An outstanding person will be appreciated by others no matter where they are. She is like that. However, tonight's attack on her came at a coincidence. Moreover, what she said on the street first, so I can't have such suspicions. Hearing this, Feng Zhou thought for a moment and said, I'll be more careful. Don't worry. If it was really as he guessed, then Yun Shuoxin's scheming was really not ordinary. A person who dared to be so ruthless to herself was an opponent who could not be ignored. The next day, because she went to bed late last night, Feng Zhou woke up late. When she got up, she saw that Xian Yuanmo was already gone, so she washed up and went out of the room. You're awake. I asked the kitchen to prepare breakfast. You can eat it now. Xian Yuanmo, who was dressed in a black robe, was sitting at the table in the courtyard, reading a book in his hand. Ying Yi was standing in a corner of the courtyard. She walked over and looked at the breakfast on the table. She smiled and said, It's all my favorite food. After she came out, Xian Yuanmo put away the book in his hand and scooped a bowl for her. Eat more. Last night, you said that you had to deal with the matters at hand. I thought you had left early. She picked up some side dishes to eat. I will accompany you to eat breakfast before returning to the Ling residence. I have already instructed Ing Yi to call some people over. I will make some arrangements. As he helped her pick up the food, he said, I will handle the matters in the Ling residence. If there's anything, you can look for me. And, Fengjiu replied. After eating breakfast, he wiped the corners of his mouth and stood up. Go do your work. Don't worry about things here. Hearing this, Xianyuanmo's revealed a smile and looked at her gently. Don't tire yourself out, I will be back later. As he spoke, he left with Ing Yi and headed towards the Ling residence. After Fengjiu had people tidy up the things on the table in the courtyard, he also left the courtyard and walked towards Yunshuoxin's courtyard. When he arrived outside, he was greeted by Lang Hua. Master. And, is that woman awake? Fengjiu asked and walked forward. I was just about to tell you that she has woken up. Lang Hua followed beside him and said. Fengjiu nodded. When she came to the courtyard, she saw that Ling Shuang was also there. She asked, Ling Shuang, come here. Who is taking care of how, It's Qingqing. Ling Shuang said. Chapter 2789. Yunshuoxin was lying on the bed. Her beautiful face was currently pale and weak. Her eyes were closed, as if she was frowning because of the pain from her wounds. When she heard the sound of footsteps, she slowly opened her eyes and looked at the person who had come. How do you feel? Fengjiu walked over and pulled over a chair to the side. He sat on the bed and looked at her. Yunshuoxin looked behind her and saw that only Ling Shuang had followed her. When her senior brother did not come, a trace of disappointment flashed through her heart. She closed her eyes and said with an indifferent expression, I won't die yet. Hearing this, Fengjiu's lips curled into a smile. You won't die from such a small injury. At most, you'll have to lie in bed for 10 days to half a month. However, this is also good. You're already injured like this, so I naturally can't bear to have you move out of the Feng Manor. You can stay here for now and recover from your injuries first. His clear eyes fell on her face, but he saw that she had closed her eyes and her face was calm and indifferent. He could not see anything. Seeing this, Fengjiu leaned back and sat down leisurely. He looked at her on the bed and said, How did Miss Yun encounter an attack last night? Who was it that attacked Miss Yun? I will only tell my senior brother. She turned her head slightly and looked at Fengjiu. If you want to know, have my senior brother come see me. Hee. Fengjiu chuckled. He played with the black hair that fell in front of his chest. His gentle voice carried a bit of carelessness and ridicule. Miss Yun's family has truly opened my eyes. To be honest, I have never seen a girl like Miss Yun. Ling Shuang poured a cup of tea for Fengjiu. After Fengjiu received it, he gently scraped the tea and took a sip. He then played with the tea in his hand and said to Ling Shuang, Miss Yun's injuries should be changed. Yes. Ling Shuang responded and went forward to change the medicine for Yunshuoxin's injuries. Fengjiu did not say anything else. He only used the tea lid to play with the tea and sat there with his eyes closed. No one knew what he was thinking. On the bed, Yunshuoxin allowed Ling Shuang to change the medicine for her and did not say anything else. As time passed, Ling Shuang changed the medicine for Yunshuoxin's injuries. He then returned to Fengjiu's side. Master, it's done. Fengjiu's injuries. Yunshuoxin's injuries. Last night, I had someone feed you an inner core. You want to see results with just an inner core? Ghost doctor, you think too highly of your pills. Yunshuoxin said slowly. Her expression was indifferent and she did not look at her. Fengjiu nodded when he heard this. That's true. You need an inner core a day to heal your internal injuries. Otherwise, you'll have problems in the future. As she spoke, she turned her palm and a bottle appeared in her hand. Since you're Moses' junior sister, I'll take advantage of you. As she spoke, she handed the bottle in her hand to Ling Shuang. Ling Shuang stepped forward and took the pill. He brought it to Yun Shuaxin and said in a cold voice, "Miss Yun, please open your mouth." Yun Shuaxin frowned and stared at the pill. What kind of pill is this? Why does it smell so strange? Chapter 2790. She took a sip of tea and said slowly, "If anything happens to you while you're in my hands, I won't be able to explain it to your senior brother. Don't you think so? Moreover, who am I? I'm the ghost doctor. How can the pills I refine be the same as those refined by other pill masters? If I really wanted to harm you, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble." Hearing this, Yun Shuaxin's eyes flashed slightly. She glanced at Feng Jiu and perhaps felt that what Feng Jiu said made sense. Hence, she glanced at the pill before opening her mouth slightly and swallowing it. Seeing this, Feng Jiu's smile deepened. That's right. She did not leave. Instead, she passed the teacup to Ling Shuang and sat there looking at Yun Shuaxin who was lying on the bed. Why aren't you leaving? Yun Shuaxin frowned at her. The medicine had been changed and she had taken the inner pill. Why was she still sitting there? Feng Jiu smiled. No rush, no rush. I have to see the effects of the medicine. Hearing this, Yun Shuaxin ignored her and closed her eyes to rest. Miss Yun is going to sleep. Didn't you just wake up? It's not good to sleep too much. Feng Jiu looked at Yun Shuaxin's frown because of her words and couldn't help but smile. Since Miss Yun wants to close your eyes and rest, that's good. Perhaps Miss Yun will remember who attacked you later. Hearing this, Yun Shuaxin opened her eyes. Her gaze was fierce. Feng Jiu. What are you trying to do? Because of this fierce shout, her internal injuries were in pain. For a moment, beads of cold sweat appeared on her forehead and her face became as pale as paper. Seeing this, Feng Jiu reached out and pressed her acupoints, saying, Miss Yun, you're injured. It's really not suitable for you to be so angry. Also, you can't move recklessly. Otherwise, if you move your broken ribs, you'll have to move them again. That's not only troublesome, but also very painful. With her acupoint pressed and her body unable to move, Yun Shuaxin glared at Feng Jiu. What are you trying to do? Quickly release my acupoint. No rush, no rush. Feng Jiu shook his head, looked at her, and asked, Miss Yun, I have a few questions for you. After you answer my questions, I will naturally unseal your acupoints. She looked at her with narrowed eyes and a smile on her face. Does Miss Yun know the person who attacked you? Hearing her words, Yun Shuaxin answered almost instinctively, yes. However, her expression changed when she spoke. She pursed her lips tightly and stared at Feng Jiu with a cold and stern gaze. However, she didn't speak again. It was as if she was afraid that the moment she spoke, she wouldn't be able to control her words. Hearing her words, Feng Jiu's smile deepened. So you know each other. Then, is the person who attacked you your enemy? Large beads of cold sweat slid down Yun Shuaxin's forehead. Her face was as pale as paper, as if she would faint at any time. She did not speak. She clenched her teeth tightly and pursed her lips. She stared fiercely at Feng Jiu as if she wanted to skin her alive. Feng Jiu did not care. He only lowered his voice and asked again, Miss Yun, is the person who attacked you your enemy? Chapter 2791. Upon hearing this, Feng Jiu's eyes flickered, and the smile on her face gradually faded. She looked at Yun Shuaxin, who was lying stiffly on the bed with a pale and weak face as she resisted the effects of the medicine. She continued to ask, then, was it an accident that you were attacked and injured? Or did you arrange it? When she asked this, she saw that Yun Shuoxin had bitten her lips so hard that they were bleeding. Fengjiu curled her lips into a cold smile. Miss Yun, don't try to resist the truest reaction in your heart. Come, tell me, was it an accident that you were attacked and injured? Or did you arrange it? Yes, I arranged it. Fengjiu. What did you do to me? Her voice was stiff and trembling. She bit her lips so hard that they were bleeding. Blood dyed her lips red, and it made her pale face look even more conspicuous. When the question came out, it gradually sounded weak and powerless. She tried to resist the words that rushed out of her mouth, but it exhausted her original physical strength. It was as if her entire body had been drained of energy. TSK TSK. Fengjiu stared at her and clicked her tongue. I didn't expect it. You're actually so cruel to yourself. When Mose told me about his suspicions, I didn't believe it. I didn't expect it to be true. I really didn't expect it. Her words made Yun Shuoxin's heart even more shocked and upset. She looked at Fengjiu and bit her lips. She wanted to ask a few questions, but she couldn't. Senior brother suspected her. She had done so well and flawlessly, yet senior brother still doubted her. Why? Why did he suspect her? If Fengjiu hadn't done something to her, no one would have known what she had done. But why did senior brother suspect her? You're not a stupid person, so how did you come up with this idea? Don't tell me you think that Mose will take pity on you because you're injured. Fengjiu sneered. She stood up and crossed her arms as she looked at Yun Shuoxin, who was lying on the bed, unable to move. She said, I don't like scheming people. Although you are injured, since this is the result of your own actions, you can't blame me. There's something wrong with that pill of yours. She gritted her teeth and said hatefully. Nonsense, do you think I'll let you eat it if there's no problem? Do you think just anyone can eat my pills? She gave a cold snort and looked down at her. Hearing this, Yun Shuoxin gritted her teeth in anger. Fengjiu. How dare he treat her like this? What? Not convinced? Fengjiu sneered, it's useless to be unconvinced. Whether it's playing dirty or playing fair, you can't beat me. Fengjiu retracted her gaze and looked at Ling Shuang, stay here and watch over her. I'll ask Leng Hua to arrange for this woman to be sent out of the residence. If it was an accident, it would be one thing, but since it was her own arrangement, then don't blame her for giving her a taste of her own medicine. Yes. Ling Shuang replied and was about to send Fengjiu out when he heard Yun Shuoxin's voice behind him. Do you think my senior brother will believe what you said? Fengjiu, who was about to leave, stopped in her tracks. She didn't walk back, but stood there and looked at her, waiting for her to continue. Men are all sentimental, especially an outstanding woman like me. Do you think my senior brother will let you chase me out? Do you think my senior brother will believe what I said just now? Yun Shuoxin coldly stared at her, trying to sow discord. Chapter 2792. Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. You really are narcissistic. It's just that you don't understand my man, and you don't understand me. As soon as she finished speaking, she couldn't be bothered to look at her anymore. Instead, she walked out and said to Leng Hua, find a courtyard for her and send her there. Yes. Inside the room, Yun Shuoxin heard the voice outside and angrily gritted her teeth. She had been too arrogant. If she knew that Fengjiu had that kind of abnormal pill, she definitely would not have done something like trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Leng Hua was very efficient. Before noon, a courtyard had been found. After obtaining Fengjiu's approval, he took Yun Shuoxin out of the Feng Manor and moved her to a courtyard outside. Fengjiu only told his subordinates to look after her and did not pay any more attention to him. It was not until evening when Xianyuan Mose returned that Fengjiu told him about this matter. That's why I used the truth pill to ask her everything. Fengzhou shrugged. I never thought that this junior sister of yours would be so cruel to herself. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to do it to myself. Hearing her words, Xianyuan Mo's expression became a bit ugly. He was silent for a while before saying, after her injuries have healed, I'll tell her to go back. Alright, let's not talk about her anymore. That injury will take at most 10 days to half a month to recover. Fengzhou said this. He looked at her and asked, when do we plan on going back? Are we going to your father's place first? Or are we going to my grandfather's place? As she said this, she thought for a bit and said, my brother and the others have already gone back for a while. I don't know when they plan on coming back. If we want to go back, we'll probably have to bring it back a bit earlier. And you should also take care of the matters here. Quickly take care of them and then we can leave. Xianyuan Mo said. The two of them were talking and discussing matters. That night, in the small courtyard outside where Yunshuoxin was staying, a figure avoided the two guards sent by Feng Jiu and entered the room as if there was no one else present. Have you been seen through? A figure came into her room and asked Yunshuoxin, who was lying on the bed. He was wearing a black cloak and a mask, so his figure and face could not be seen. Hearing the voice, Yunshuoxin, who was sleeping on the bed, opened her eyes and looked sideways at the person. She frowned and was a little displeased. Why are you here? I'm here to tell you not to forget about business. But looking at you now, it seems that you can't even get close to Fengzhou, let alone find a chance to do it. The black-robed man's voice turned cold as he stared at her coldly. I've already warned you not to waste your time on other things. If you don't do it, you'll be punished when you return. I didn't expect her to come back so suddenly. Her sudden appearance disrupted my plan, Yunshuoxin said coldly. Plan? Ha! The man sneered, Master didn't send you to seduce Xianyuan Mo's. Hearing the word seduce, Yunshuoxin's face turned from white to red, then from red to green and white. She was the proud daughter of a noble family. How could she be associated with the word seduce? I didn't seduce Senior. She gritted her teeth and said. Chapter 2793. Enough. Yunshuoxin shouted angrily. This shout caused her internal injuries to hurt. At the same time, the people guarding the small courtyard heard the noise and quickly rushed over. Hearing the noise outside, the man shook his head and was very disappointed. You really can't compare to Fengzhou. As soon as he finished speaking, the two guards outside rushed in. His black robes fluttered and a black aura filled the air. His entire person disappeared from the room. Who goes there? The guards' shouts rang out in the room. However, when they came in, they only saw Yunshuoxin on the bed. They glanced at her, then looked away and vigilantly looked around. Get out! Yunshuoxin endured the pain from her internal injuries and threw the pillow at them. Seeing this, the two guards retreated. When they were outside, one of them lowered his voice and said, You stay here and keep watch. I'll go back and report to Master. Although they did not see anyone, they were certain that there was someone in the room. When the guards returned to the Feng Manor and told Fengzhou what had happened, Fengzhou smiled. You two can come back tomorrow. I'll have Leng Hua arrange for 2 servant girls to go over. Yes, sir. The guard replied and retreated. After the guards left, Xianyuan Mo's asked from inside the room, Are we letting her do as she pleases? Let her do as she pleases. Either way, we're preparing to leave. We'll just let her recover there. As Fengzhou spoke, he patted his head in annoyance. I shouldn't have only asked those few questions. I made a mistake. As night fell, the two of them prepared to rest. In the next few days, the two of them busied themselves with their own matters. Because of this, they completely forgot about Yunshuoxin, who was recovering in the courtyard. Yunshuoxin waited in the courtyard for a few days. Seeing that Fengzhou did not come again, and even her senior did not appear, she could not help but feel disheartened. As her injuries gradually healed, she could barely get out of bed and walk around. She thought that she should go to the Foam Manor again. However, on this night, 3 people came. Master wants you to go back. It's not suitable for you to get involved in this matter. The cloaked man spoke in a deep voice. His cold eyes stared at Yun Shuashin, who was leaning against the headboard of the bed. He ignored her pale face and gestured with his hand. The 2 men in black behind him walked forward and helped her up from the bed. I can't leave like this, She tried to say something, but before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted. You should know that no one can change Master's decision. If he wants you to go back, then you have to go back. The man said coldly, looking at her with contempt, what's more, I've never thought that a woman can do anything. In this world, there is only one ghost Dr. Fengzhou, you can't compare to her. Shuashin, Yun Shuashin's, Yun Shuashin, Yun Shuashin's. How can I not be compared to Fengzhou? That woman was just a woman who came from an unknown place. How can you be compared to me, Yun Shuashin? Chapter 2794. The man's cold voice sounded in the room and entered Yun Shuashin's ears. She pursed her lips and did not speak again, allowing the 2 black-clothed men to help her up. How do you plan to deal with Fengzhou next? Yun Shuashin asked. That's not something you should ask. The man coldly glanced at her and reached out to lift her chin. Looking at her pale face, he said, what you should do right now is to nurse your body back to health. Master has another task for you. Yun Shuashin turned her face slightly and broke free from his touch. She coldly said, my senior apprentice brother is an Empyrean god. His battle prowess is unfathomable. If you want to deal with Fengzhou, you must first lure him away. Otherwise, no matter how many people you have, if the 2 of them work together, you will not be able to take down Fengzhou. Do I need you to teach me how to do things? You should take care of yourself first. The man's eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed through them. He signaled with his eyes and the 2 men took her away. After the man swept his gaze over the small courtyard, he also turned and left. The next day, when the servant came in to serve, she discovered that Yun Shuashin had disappeared. Thus, she hurried back to the Foam Manor to report. What? She disappeared. Fengzhou raised an eyebrow and looked at the servant who had her head lowered. Yes. This servant went in this morning to help Miss Yun wash up, but I discovered that Miss Yun had disappeared. This servant failed in her duty and did not take good care of Miss Yun. Master, please punish me. The servant's voice trembled and her heart was panicking. She still lowered her head and knelt in front of Fengzhou. Hearing this, Fengzhou waved his hand, that's enough. You may rise. As he spoke, he said, come with me to take a look. He left the Foam Manor and went to the small courtyard. When he arrived at the small courtyard, he entered Yun Shuashin's room to take a look. He saw that there were no signs of a struggle in the room. Everything was neatly arranged. However, the blankets on the bed had been lifted and were not folded properly. Thus, he looked at the servant behind him and asked, has this room been tidied up? Replying to Master, it hasn't. This servant discovered that Miss Yun had disappeared and quickly returned to the manor to report. This place has not been touched. Fengzhou nodded and waved his hand, I understand. You may return to the Foam Manor. There is no need to keep watch here. After the servant girl acknowledged her words and retreated, she walked forward and stood beside the bed. It was unknown what she was thinking, but after a long time, she walked outside. Xianyuan Mose was in the middle of instructing his subordinates about the handover when he heard Ng Yi say that Fengzhou had arrived. Thus, he sent his subordinates back first and went outside himself. Is there something you need from me? He sat down in the courtyard outside and signaled the guard to pour 2 cups of tea. I came to tell you that your junior sister ran away. As Fengzhou spoke, she sat down at the table and looked at Xianyuanmos with both hands supporting her chin with SS. She can leave on her own. I just went to the small courtyard to take a look. She was probably taken away by someone. It should be the person who injured her. Right now, there are no signs of a struggle. So the person who took her away should be someone she knows. Hearing this, Xianyuanmos nodded. It's good that she left. Originally, I wanted her to leave. Now that she has left on her own, at least it won't be so ugly. Chapter 2795. I'll go with you. I'm almost done with the things I have on hand, Xianyuanmos said as he stood up and looked at her. Seeing this, Fengzhou said, that's fine too. Thus, he asked someone to prepare a carriage, and the two of them sat in the carriage and went to the Heavenly Pill building. When they reached the building, Fengzhou asked Lang Hua and Du Fan to call the Phoenix Guards and the manager of the building to the backyard. Seeing more than 10 people gathered together, Fengzhou stretched out his hand and set up a soundproof barrier in the courtyard. When they saw that their master had set up a soundproof barrier here, everyone was a little surprised. They thought, could it be that something big had happened? I want to tell you that Mose and I plan to go to Penglai Immortal Island's Immortal Ascension Ladder after some time. There's a door of light on the Immortal Ascension Ladder that leads to another world. We're going there to improve our strength, so we're going to bring some people with us. Hearing their master's words, more than 10 people couldn't help but feel nervous. Would their master bring them there? For a moment, their hearts beat fiercely, and they were so nervous that their palms were sweating. We can't bring too many people there, so I only plan to choose 8 people to go with me. Seeing how they were holding their breaths, Fengzhou continued, actually, you don't have to think that going there is a good thing. The people there are stronger. When you go there, you have to start all over again. You have to be careful in everything. Master, we're not afraid. Master, take me there. Master, I'm not afraid either. Master, please take me there too. Master. They all scrambled to be the first to speak, afraid that they would be left behind. Although it was not bad for them to be here, they wanted to follow their master to gain experience and grow together. However, they also knew that even if they wanted to go, not everyone could go. Since master said these words, he must already have a candidate in mind. At this moment, they couldn't help but envy the 8 people who were chosen by master. However, there were so many of them, yet master only planned to bring 8 people. It could be imagined how many of them would be chosen. Fengzhou looked at them, his clear and unhurried voice sounding out. These 8 people are Luo Yu, Fan Lin, Gu Mo, Wei Feng, Ling Shuang, Ling Hua, Du Fan, and Bai Qingqing. When they heard the first 7 people, they were not surprised. However, when they heard Bai Qingqing's name, they could not help but look at their master in astonishment. One of them asked with hesitation and confusion, Master, the first 7 people have been following you for a long time. We don't have any objections if you bring them along. However, why do you want to bring Bai Qingqing along? Bai Qingqing was the most inconspicuous among them. She was also the most ordinary. Aside from her outstanding appearance, there was nothing else about her that was memorable. Especially since she had once had designs on master. However, why would master want to bring her along? Today, Bai Qingqing was not here. Instead, she was in the Feng Manor. Everyone was even more confused. Hearing this, Fengzhou only smiled slightly. Although she has been by my side for the shortest time and her strength is the most inconspicuous among you, she has her own uniqueness. This time, I'm only giving her an opportunity. Chapter 2796. Hearing her words, everyone fell silent. They also knew that it would not be easy for their master to go there. Naturally, it was impossible for her to bring all of them. Even the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guards only brought 4 people. It was obvious that the rest of them did not stand a chance. I will tell Lang Hua and Du Fan about the other matters later. You can all leave. The 8 of you stay. Feng Zhou looked at the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guards and said. Seeing this, the 8 of them stayed. After the others left, Feng Zhou looked at the 4 people she had left behind and said, Among the 8 of you, I have chosen Luo Yu and the other 3 to come with me. The 4 of you will stay here. The task on your shoulders is not easy. She paused and said, The few of you are more mature and you are familiar with everything about the Phoenix Guards. Therefore, I can't bring all of you with me. If I bring all of you with me, I will not be at ease here. Do you understand? The 8 of them had followed her all the way here. Now, she had only chosen 4 of them to follow her to Penglai Island. She was worried that they would think that she did not choose them because she did not think they were good enough. Therefore, she could only tell them frankly. Master, we understand. Even if you leave, there must be someone to look after this place. Whether it is the Phoenix Guards or the forces of the Tianyuan Palace, only they know best and know how to operate. Master, don't worry. The 4 of us will shoulder the original responsibilities of Luo Yu and the other 3. We will take care of this place so that Master will not have any worries. Hearing this, Feng Zhou smiled and said, Very good. She nodded and took out a map that she had drawn for them. She said, This is the route that I drew to the Penglai Immortal Island, as well as the things that you need to pay attention to along the way. This is the route that I have taken. Pay extra attention to the places that I have marked. There are also some connections that I am familiar with in the Penglai Immortal Island. She looked at them and said, I don't know when I will be back. Therefore, keep these things. In the future, you can try to climb the stairway of immortality. I have also explained the things to pay attention to on the stairway of immortality. Take it and read it carefully. Thank you, Master. The 4 of them replied and took the things. Feng Zhou looked at the other 4 and said, Luo Yu and the others, quickly finish the tasks with the 4 of them. After these 2 days, we have to make a trip back. Yes. The 4 of them replied. Only then did they bow and leave with the rest of the group. After they left, Xianyuan Mose who was sitting at the side. It's enough. It's not appropriate to bring too many people over. She waved her hand to remove the soundproof barrier and walked to the table to sit down. To be honest, whether it's the 8 Phoenix Guard captains or the others, they've all been with me for a long time. It's really something that I've thought about over and over again. Chapter 2797. What about your brother and the others? Aren't you going to bring them along? Xianyuan Mose asked. If she didn't bring them along, with Guan Xilin's strength, he probably wouldn't be able to climb the immortal ascension stairs and enter the profound light sect within 5 years. Feng Zhou sighed softly. I've thought about it before, but I think it's better to let him increase his strength first. I hope that he can climb the immortal ascension stairs on his own. If he can climb it with his own strength, I think he'll have a better chance of surviving there. As for Mo Qin, I think that if he knows about our plans, he'll probably go with us. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo said without thinking, he's Tianji Elder's disciple, so it's better for him to stay here. Furthermore, he has an otherworldly aura, so what can he do even if he goes over there? I haven't told him about this yet, so it's up to him whether he goes or not. As soon as she finished speaking, she stood up. Let's go home. Let's go back and play with Hao. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's lips curled up slightly. Okay. He stood up and held her hand as they walked out. Outside, the carriage was already prepared. Just as Feng Zhou was about to get on the carriage, a group of more than 20 people suddenly appeared in the sky. They were flying on swords, holding bows and arrows in their hands, and there was a burning flame at the tip of the arrows. As these people approached Feng Zhou and the Heavenly Pill building, their spiritual energy surged. At the same time, one group of the 20 people went in the other direction, while the other group went in the other direction. When they released the arrows in their hands, several arrows flew out with a whoosh. Just as they were about to shoot into the Heavenly Pill building, a protective shield formed by spiritual energy instantly appeared in the Heavenly Pill building. The flaming arrows were bounced away by the protective shield formed by spiritual energy, blocking them outside the building. At the same time, the cultivators in the building rushed out, surrounding the Heavenly Pill building to protect them. Fengjiu finally felt at ease when she witnessed this scene. She gazed at the group that had arrived on their swords, and she noticed that a group of people had split off from the group and headed towards another direction. She couldn't help but feel slightly worried when she saw this. Those people seemed to be heading towards the manor. How is still at home? I have to go back and take a look. Hearing this, Xianyuanmos looked at those people and said to her, I'll go back with you. But this place. She looked at the Heavenly Pill building with some hesitation. Don't worry, they can protect him. Xianyuanmos said in a deep voice, if you can't protect them, how can you be at ease and let them protect the Heavenly Dan building? Let them try. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. He turned around and instructed Lang Hua and the others, eliminate the enemy. Protect the Heavenly Dan building well. Yes. Everyone responded. She and the Yama Lord stood up together and quickly headed in the direction of the Feng Manor. After seeing them leave, the hidden guards in the Heavenly Dan building and the powerhouses in the building turned from defense to offense. They surrounded the dozen or so people in the air and launched a series of attacks. In a corner of the street, Wei Lang, who heard that something had happened in the Heavenly Dan building, was squatting at the corner of the street. When he heard the people on the street rushing to inform him, he immediately leaped up and had the hidden guards release his sealed spiritual energy. He then quickly rushed to the Heavenly Dan building. The two of them arrived at the Heavenly Dan building together. After seeing the situation, they quickly joined the battle. Chapter 2798. Compared to the black-clothed people on the Heavenly Pill building side, aside from the black-clothed people on their swords, there was another group waiting here. The two groups of black-clothed people added up to around 30 people, and they were currently attacking the people inside the Feng Manor. Among them, there were several people at the peak of the Celestial Sage realm, and there were even two at the Celestial Venerable realm. The hidden guards and guards in the manor were not their opponents, and could only defend to the death. A few of them were protecting Lang Shuang, who was carrying a child. Their bodies were covered in blood, but they did not retreat a single step. Bai Qingqing was also among them. Her white clothes were stained with blood, and it was very eye-catching. Her face was covered in frost, and the spiritual energy on her body surged. With a wave of her sleeve, several contracted beasts rushed out, heading downwards. Roar! Roar! Master! It's Master! When the people guarding saw her return, it was as if their pillar of support had returned. They could not help but relax, and their fighting spirit became even stronger as they shouted, "Kill!" The sound of swords clashing could be heard clearly. Even if they knew that their strength was not their opponents, they still fought with all their strength. At this time, Xianyuanmos had already killed a few celestial sage cultivators. The strength of celestial gods was very strong. They could have used their pressure to make the people below fall to the ground, but that would also hurt their people. Thus, Xianyuanmos could only kill them one by one. The hidden guards of the Feng Manor were not the opponents of the Celestial Venerables, and those people were naturally not the opponents of Fengjiu and Xianyuanmos. Moreover, with the help of a few divine beasts below, the situation gradually reversed. However, one of the Celestial Venerable cultivators who was fighting with Fengjiu stared at Fengjiu and shouted, "Fengjiu! Obediently hand over the ancient green lotus. Otherwise, more people will die because of you." "Is that so? Then before that, I will first kill all of you." She used her hand as a sword, and her chi as a blade. Her spiritual energy turned into a sharp blade between her fingers. Streams of chi attacked the cultivator at an extremely fast speed, causing wounds to appear on the body of the celestial venerable cultivator. The celestial venerable retreated step by step while trying to avoid her attack. However, because his dodging speed was not fast enough, he fell from the sky and fell to the ground. Seeing Fengjiu chasing after him, he tried to escape. "You can't escape." Fengjiu's eyes narrowed, and killing intent flashed in his eyes. The celestial venerable cultivator who was trying to escape on the ground. To the celestial venerable cultivator who was trying to escape on the ground, and leaped to the sky. Trying to run. She was in the air. She reached celestial venerable cultivator, and reached celestial venerable cultivator. She reached out her hand she reached and reached cultivator's venerable cultivator, and reached, she cultivators her she reached him, and she cultivator. She, cultivator, and, cultivator, she. Was. Of course. Cultivator, ceiling, and cultivator venerable, ceiling she realm, as cultivators. Bees she reach, she. Fengjiu. The sound of bones breaking was drowned out by the powerful pressure. The cultivator in her hand lost his life force, but just as she was about to loosen her grip, a black aura wrapped around her wrist and pulled her up abruptly. Joe. Xianyuanmo saw that the situation was not right, and was shocked. He quickly gathered his qi from Ling Xuan, who was holding the child, and quickly rushed to Fengjiu's location. Chapter 2799. When the Yama Lord became angry, it was truly like hell on earth. Even the cultivators who had crawled out of piles of corpses could not help but shiver at the scene before them. Not far away, the white-clothed Imo Chin stood under a tree. His gaze returned from the sky and landed on the bloody street. His gaze only flashed for a moment. He never thought that Fengjiu would be taken to some unknown place after returning. The transportation formation that appeared in the sky could not be opened by a normal person. Also, the black aura that bound Fengjiu. It seemed that he had been taken away by the person with the black lotus of annihilation. At this moment, he could not help but be a bit worried. Would she be able to escape from the clutches of those people? After the black-clothed people were killed and Fengjiu was sucked away by the black hole, the people of the Feng Manor stopped outside for a moment and had some people clean up the corpses outside. They also had some injured people enter the manor to have their wounds bandaged. Xianyuanmo walked into the Feng Manor with a cold expression on his face. Behind him, the silver wolf whimpered and looked at the sky, feeling wronged. In the end, it turned around and walked into the manor. If its master had contracted it, it would have been able to enter the contracted beast space. Now, Tunyun and Old White had entered the space and were at its master's side. Only it remained here. Inside the Feng Manor, Xuanyuanmo sat in the main hall. Because Fengjiu had been sucked away by the transportation formation, his mood was gloomy. This caused everyone in the manor to feel oppressed. The atmosphere in the manor was so heavy that it made it hard for people to breathe. Yama Lord, young Master Imo Chin has come. The guard outside said, and a white figure slowly walked in from outside. At this moment, Xianyuanmo was still blaming himself. That feeling of helplessness was so uncomfortable, especially when he could only watch helplessly as Fengjiu was sucked into the transportation array and disappeared before his eyes. He didn't dare to imagine what would happen to him if something happened to her. A transportation black hole that appeared out of nowhere, and there was also the black lotus of annihilation. Even if you had pulled her back at the time, you would have definitely been sucked in. He looked at Xianyuanmo's slightly red eyes and said, "That suction force isn't here. It's on the other side of the black hole. That's why it can't be stopped." Xianyuanmo nodded and said, "That suction force isn't here. It's on the other side of the black hole." Just because she is the star of the Phoenix, she has experienced so much more hardship than others. Xianyuanmo's voice was low and hoarse. Chen slowly walked into the hall and sat down. She said warmly, in this world, who hasn't experienced hardship? Some people are constantly facing small difficulties, but they are not fatal. Others, on the other hand, are facing a great disaster and have no way to survive. Although Fengjiu has experienced a lot of hardships, every time she went through a trial, even if it was a narrow escape from death, she would still improve. She was originally extraordinary, the path she walked would naturally be different from others. His voice was gentle, as if he was not worried or nervous. He looked at Xianyuanmo and asked, "What do you plan to do next?" When he had arrived, he had heard what she had said to Xianyuanmo. However, he did not know what she meant. Chapter 2800. Hearing this, Chen looked at him and said, "She asked you to carry on with your business. I'm going to find her and bring her back." Xianyuanmo said, a dim light flashing through his eyes. He knew that she wanted him to carry out their previous agreement, but he was not at ease, especially since it was overseas. He was even more worried about leaving her alone in such a strange place. Hearing this, Chen paused for a moment and asked, "When are you leaving?" "I'll go with you." Xianyuanmo glanced at him and said calmly, "No need." Chen smiled warmly and said, "If you want to go, I think it's necessary, unless you don't want to go." "Master, master." Hui Lang's voice came from outside. Not long after, Hui Lang, who was dressed as a beggar, ran in and said, "Master, I heard that the ghost doctor, young Master Chen. You're here too." Seeing Chen, Hui Lang was stunned. "Hui Lang, what mistake did you make this time? Why are you dressed as a beggar?" Chen looked at him and smiled. I'm training outside." Hui Lang scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Seeing his master's tense face, he quickly straightened his back and said, "Master, there are no casualties in the Heavenly Pill building. Leng Hua and Du Fan have returned and went to check on the casualties in the manor. You may leave." Xianyuanmo said and waved his hand, indicating for him to leave. "Yes." Grey Wolf responded and planned to go down and change his clothes before coming back. He bowed and retreated. Xianyuanmo was silent for a moment and asked in a low voice, "Fengjiu has fallen into the hands of those people. What's the worst that could happen?" His body tensed up. Even though he didn't want to think about the worst, he couldn't help but hear a glimmer of hope from Chen's words. After Chen heard this, he did not say anything for a while. After a while, he said, "Actually, I don't agree with you going to find her. You should know that Fengjiu has an Aurora teleportation scroll. She can escape from those people as long as she finds an opportunity. If we go, it will be unnecessary." He looked deeply at Xianyuanmo, who was frowning, and said, "Moreover, you should believe in her. With her ability and wisdom, I feel that even if she is in danger, she will definitely be able to turn the situation around." Hearing his words, Xianyuanmo took a deep breath and leaned back in his seat. He gradually calmed down and knew that Fengjiu meant the same thing. However, he was still a little worried about letting her face such a situation alone. The servant girl came in and served them tea. Then, she lowered her head and quietly left. "You guys are going to Penglai Immortal Island to climb the immortal stairs. I have to find time to go back and tell my master," Chen said as she took a sip of tea. Hearing this, Xianyuanmo's eyelids twitched. He glanced at him and said, "I didn't ask you to go with us." "Yes. You didn't ask me to go with you, but I have to go," Chen said unhurriedly. He used the lid to gently scrape the tea leaves on the teacup and said, "My master has long ordered me to follow Fengjiu. However, I am ashamed to say that I have not been able to complete this task well. I have let my master down." Chapter 2801. Chen smiled and took a sip of tea before saying, "It's all right. You do what you need to do. I still have to go to Ling Shuang's place to see the child." Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose also stood up and walked out without saying anything else. Chen sat in the hall for a while and drank a cup of tea. Only then did she walk out, intending to see that child. At this time, they did not know that after Fengjiu was sucked into the teleportation formation, a flame ignited on her hand and forced the dark qi that was coiling around her hand to retreat. However, at this time, her body had already fallen out of the black hole. Just as she was about to fall into the formation that was surging with powerful spiritual energy, she looked down and saw many powerful cultivators wearing black cloaks waiting for her below. Among them, there was also a person wearing a black lotus mask who was sitting on a chair. The moment she fell, the black-clothed man who was sucked into the black hole with her reached out to grab her and pull her down. Seeing this, she moved her palm and the Qingfeng sword instantly appeared in her hand. Sword shadow green light. She shouted and the Qingfeng sword in her hand shot out a green and dazzling light. She attacked the black-clothed man with a murderous aura. It was so fast that it could be said to be the speed of light. The black-clothed man, who was quite powerful, could not dodge in time and was hit by the sword. Whoosh! Hiss! The sharp and terrifying sword qi broke through the shield that the black-clothed man had quickly condensed to block the attack. With a loud bang, the mask on the black-clothed man's face was split open by the Qingfeng sword, revealing his true face under the mask. It was the face of a man in his 30s. There was a sinister look on his face. His slender eyes were wide open in shock, as if he could not believe the scene in front of him. When he was hit, he froze. He could not dodge or escape. Even though he was an immortal venerable, he could not withstand the attack of a heavenly god expert and the ancient divine weapon in his hand. A trace of blood seeped out from his forehead and slowly slid down. Subsequently, his entire body split into two and fell to the ground with a bang, and it shocked all the black-clothed men who were about to capture Fengjiu. "Master of the Black Lotus, this is a greeting gift from me, Fengjiu. We'll meet again." While the crowd below was still in shock, they suddenly heard Fengjiu's cold and arrogant voice. Just as they were wondering what she meant by this, they saw her swinging the green-edged longsword in her hand around as she descended. Streaks of sword energy shot out, forming a sword shield. Immediately after, a wave of flames shot out with a whoosh. For a moment, no one could see her figure. It was also at this moment that the crowd below clearly sensed the faint aura of a formation within the barrier formed by the flames and sword qi. However, the aura of the formation only flashed for a moment. If one didn't pay close attention, it would be impossible to detect it. However, the black-clothed cultivators soon realized that something was wrong because they could not see Fengjiu's figure. The ball of flame and sword energy seemed to have stopped in midair and gradually dissipated. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Chapter 2802. However, before he could reach the sky, he saw the flames and sword shield gradually disappear in the air. However, Fengjiu, who was so big, disappeared as well. The black-robed cultivator widened his eyes in shock. He went forward to check, but there was nothing. He couldn't help but turn back to look at his master. The black-robed man with the black lotus mask who was sitting there narrowed his eyes dangerously when he saw this scene. He stood up in disbelief and clenched his fists tightly under his sleeves. How could he let her escape after coming here? Pass down the order. Search for her, he said in a gloomy voice that was filled with anger. The aura around him became extremely terrifying, causing the surrounding black-robed cultivators to move. They spread the order and searched everywhere for Fengjiu's figure. "Master, this Fengjiu is said to have many treasures on her. I'm afraid she used some kind of teleportation formation to escape," a black-robed man said as he looked at his master, who was emitting a cold aura. Fengzhou's strength and methods were far beyond their expectations to be able to escape from so many of them and even kill that immortal venerable expert. They had never seen her before. They had only heard that Fengzhou's reputation was extremely resounding. They didn't believe it at first, but seeing it with their own eyes today was indeed better than hearing it 100 times. That strike of the sword was not only a visual impact, it was even more shocking to their hearts. It caused a wave of shock to arise in their hearts, and they were unable to calm down for a long time. It was likely that for a very long time in the future, as long as they faced the ghost Dr. Fengzhou, the scene from before would be recalled by them once again. I don't believe that she can escape from me now that she's here. The black-robed man with the black lotus mask said in a gloomy voice, "This time, I must get the ancient green lotus in her body. Yes. I'll immediately lead people to search the surroundings." The black-robed cultivator said, bowed, and quickly retreated. The black-robed cultivators who were originally surrounding the area were divided into 12 groups and searched in all directions. Not long after, only the black-robed man with the black lotus mask and 3 other black-robed cultivators were left standing in the originally crowded area. "Bury him." His gaze fell on the black-robed cultivator who had been cleaved in half. "Yes." One of them replied and called 2 other black-robed cultivators forward to deal with the black-robed cultivator's corpse. The black-robed man with the black lotus mask stood there for a while, staring at the sky. No one knew what he was thinking. After a pause, he turned and left. At this moment, Fengzhou was hiding in the space. She used the formation, flames, and sword shield to conceal herself so that she could escape and hide in the space without being discovered. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult for her to escape if she fell into the space below. Moreover, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. Even if she had the strength of a heavenly god, the black-robed cultivators below were not weak either. Even if they weren't as strong as her, they would undoubtedly be defeated after a long battle. Chapter 28:03. Thus, while the people outside were looking for her, she stayed in the space and cultivated. A few days later, she sent out a strand of divine sense and found that there was no one in the area. There were only 1 or 2 groups of black-robed people patrolling the area. She stood up and took off her red robes and tied up her feminine features. She changed into the same black robes as the people outside and hung a waist token on her body. She took out a mask and put it on. Then, she concealed her aura and flashed out of the space. She appeared in the place where the matrix was located. Then, her figure flashed and she quickly jumped onto a big tree. She carefully observed the surrounding movements. Not long after, a group of black-robed people walked over and walked under the tree. After another incense's time, another group of black-robed people came and walked under the tree. After looking for a while, she thought to herself. This place seemed to be in the middle of a mountain forest and the surrounding trees were lush. Other than this person, there didn't seem to be anyone else around. Based on the topography of this place, it should be one of their bases. She could try to investigate from here. After making up her mind, she jumped down from the tree and flashed to another place. She saw a black-robed person jogging into the forest to relieve himself. Thus, she quietly followed from behind. That is, there's still no news of the ghost Dr. Fengzhou. Such a big person, even if she used the transportation array, she shouldn't be able to escape far. Send more people to search for her. You must find her. Yes. The black-robed cultivator replied and led his men to search in all directions. Just as Fengzhou was about to head to the other side, the black-robed cultivator's gaze fell on her. You over there, come here. The black-robed cultivator shouted and waved at Fengzhou. Before Fengzhou came close, he asked, "What are you doing over there alone?" Fengzhou quickly walked over and lowered her head respectfully. "I just went to relieve myself." Her voice was suppressed, as if she was a different person. No one who heard her voice would think that she was a woman. The black-robed cultivator stared at the black-robed cultivator and said, "Your waist token." Hearing this, Fengjiu immediately took off the token on his waist and handed it over. Just now, he had killed a cultivator, and even exchanged for his waist token. The black-robed cultivator glanced at the waist tag and threw it back to him. "Go back to your team." "Yes." Fengjiu replied, and quickly walked towards the group of black-clothed men. The black-robed cultivator shifted his gaze and shouted at the other teams, "Hurry up. Expand the search area. The one over there, what are you waiting for?" Fengjiu followed the team and left. This team was in charge of guarding. When it was time, they would change shifts. She was sent to a place to guard. She looked at the place and saw that it seemed to be a cave. It should be the place where the Black Lotus Lord lived. The figure stood straight outside, just like the other black-robed cultivators. As time passed, the man wearing the Black Lotus mask walked out with his hands clasped behind his back. Looking at the black-clothed cultivator walking outside, he asked in a deep voice, "How is it?" Chapter 28:04. It was as if she had disappeared from the world. She was nowhere to be found. Upon hearing the black-robed cultivator's words, the Black Lotus Lord released his aura. His voice was gloomy and sinister. "I want something. I've never failed to get it." Sensing the powerful aura from the Black Lotus Lord, the black-robed man thought for a moment and said, "Master, there's news from the Penglai Immortal Island." They seem to have seen Fengjiu appear there. It seems that upon hearing this, the Black Lotus Lord, who was standing with his hands behind his back, sneered. If she hadn't appeared here, it would have been believable. Now that she has been sucked into the teleportation array, do you think the person who appeared there would still be her? The black-robed cultivator lowered his head and didn't dare to speak again. He also found it strange. Fengjiu was originally in Hundred Rivers City. Then, she was sucked into the teleportation array in the sky. Why would she appear on the Penglai Immortal Island? After thinking for a moment, he said, "But Master, our men followed her all the way to Penglai. Could it be that the Fengjiu we caught through the teleportation array was just her clone?" Upon hearing this, the Black Lotus Lord paused for a moment. "Clone. Even I can't condense such a real clone. I'm sure that the Fengjiu we caught was definitely not her clone." He walked with his hands behind his back and said, "The person who went to Penglai was also her." However, according to them, Fengjiu suddenly returned. She must have something on her that could teleport her quickly. His gaze landed on the sky and narrowed slightly. Just like how she disappeared in front of so many of us. As he spoke, he walked into the cave abode. As he entered the cave residence, Fengjiu, who was standing straight outside, twitched the corners of her lips under her mask. It wasn't until the first half of the night when another team came to take over their shift that their team could rest. The night was dark, and there was a faint flickering light. Feng 9, who was sitting with those men in black, was listening to their conversation and collecting useful information. After a few more days, there was still no sign of Fengjiu. On this day, the Black Lotus Master left after receiving a message. It was also on this day that Fengjiu began his operation. "We found a few corpses in the forest to the east," a black-robed cultivator reported. Hearing this, two teams brought people over to check. But who would have thought that even after a long time, there was no movement at all? The people waiting here sensed that something was wrong and brought people to the eastern forest. Among them, the black-robed cultivator leading the group didn't go forward. Instead, he waved his hand and said, "You guys, go up and take a look." The two cultivators stepped forward and walked a few meters, but nothing happened. They then turned around and said, "Nothing." Before he could finish his sentence, Tunyon suddenly lunged over and snapped his neck. A blade of wind flashed past the other person's body. Soon after, blood seeped out of that person's neck. He fell to the ground, dead on the spot. "Oh no!" Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but take a few steps back. They stared at the two godly beasts that suddenly appeared. No! These two were not godly beasts. Instead, one of them was a super godly beast and the other seemed to be a mutated beast. Chapter 28:05. However, no one responded to his call. There was only the sound of bodies falling to the ground. He turned around abruptly and saw a black-robed cultivator holding a dagger dripping with blood. He was reaping the lives of more than 10 black-robed cultivators who had come with him. Those cultivators with high cultivation were actually unable to resist at this moment. They stood there motionless, allowing the sharp blade to slash their throats. The smell of blood permeated the air. He suddenly regained his senses and looked at the masked figure. He exclaimed in shock, "Fengzhou. You're Fengzhou." Those people didn't have the strength to resist, because a powerful pressure was suppressing each and every one of them. This was an absolute expert. Only a powerhouse who was more powerful than them could do this. Besides their master, the only other person who could do this was Fengzhou. He wanted to escape as soon as he spoke. However, as soon as he turned around, a sharp sword chi attacked him. His figure froze for a moment and he fell forward. Fengzhou stepped forward and looked at the black-robed man who was crawling on the ground. He said, "Unfortunately, you found out too late." As soon as he finished speaking, Tunyun pounced forward and bit off his neck. His screams were choked in his throat. "Master, let's kill them." Wait came to her side and said, "No hurry. Let's wait a little longer." As Fengzhou spoke, she collected their spatial rings and chinquan bags. Half an incense stick's worth of time. After half an incense stick's worth of time, we won't have to do anything to those people. She waited here with the two beasts for half an incense stick's worth of time. After half an incense stick's worth of time, she changed into her own clothes and brought the two beasts back. When she saw the cultivators who had fallen to the ground and were screaming in pain, she curled her lips coldly. Since the Black Lotus Master dared to capture her here, he should be aware of the painful consequences. The people in front of her had lost all their spiritual energy. Their bodies felt as if millions of ants were gnawing on them. They were in so much pain that they could hardly breathe as they rolled on the ground. When they saw the red-robed Fengzhou slowly walking over with two mythical beasts behind him, their eyes were filled with shock. "Fengzhou. Why is she still here?" They had not found her for so many days and thought that she had escaped. Who would have thought that she was still here? Thinking of the problems they had encountered and seeing Fengzhou slowly walking over, how could they not know what was going on? Fengzhou stopped and glanced at those people. At the same time, she ordered the two contracted beasts behind her. "Leave no one alive." As soon as she finished speaking, the two contracted beasts roared and pounced forward. At the same time, Fengzhou's long sword flashed and started to harvest lives like a messenger from hell. Blood splattered, limbs scattered, and screams continued. The bloody scene made those cultivators tremble. They were not afraid of death, but they could only watch as death approached them step by step. They watched as the red figure walked towards them like a Rakshasa harvesting lives. Their hearts trembled. Chapter 28:06. A flame ignited the place. The corpses on the ground were burned to ashes together with the blood that splashed out. The raging fire soared into the sky. Black smoke filled the air, and the stench was overwhelming. The fire burned for 3 days and 3 nights. Even the trees in the area and the formation were burned down. Only when there was nothing left to burn did the fire gradually die out. When the Black Lotus Lord received the news and rushed over, it was already 3 days later. When he arrived and saw the destroyed and empty place, he clenched his fists. A monstrous murderous intent shot out from his body. He looked up to the sky and roared, "Fengzhou. Even if you escape to the ends of the earth, I will find you and tear you to pieces." His voice echoed in the sky for a long time. It was so loud that even people who were far away could hear his angry and monstrous murderous voice. However, compared to the Black Lotus Lord's anger, Fengjiu was leisurely resting on a tree by the side of the road with her eyes closed. It had been 3 days since she left that place. In these 3 days, she was sure that even if she wore a dazzling red dress and walked around, the Black Lotus Lord's men would not be able to find her. Originally, she wanted to use the Aurora teleportation scroll to leave this overseas area. However, she thought that it was rare for her to come here and that she would not have the chance to come here again. Therefore, she wanted to take this opportunity to take a look around here. Anyway, even if she used the Aurora teleportation scroll to go to her parents' place, Moze would not have arrived yet. She turned and jumped down from the tree. She called out, "Lao Bai." With a flash of light, Lao Bai jumped out of the space. He appeared in the form of a horse and stopped in front of her. He wagged his tail and looked at her fawningly. "Master." Fengjiu turned and jumped up. Then, she patted his head and said, "Let's go." "Okay." Lao Bai replied and led her forward. He was extremely fast. When he ran, it was as if he was sprinting. Only dust could be seen on the road. There was no sign of the white horse or the red dress. In the evening, when the man and the horse arrived at the coastal area, Lao Bai couldn't help but stop when he saw the blue light floating in the sea. He exclaimed, "Master, look, what is that blue thing?" Fengjiu jumped down and stood by the sea to watch. Lao Bai ran forward and stepped on the water to play. When its hooves stepped into the water, the palm-sized object emitting a blue light shrank and swam into the depths of the water. "Master, these things are from Dong. Can they be eaten?" Lao Bai asked as he quickly stepped on a palm-sized object that was emitting a blue light. He then used his hoof to kick it to the side. Fengjiu looked at it and said, "This thing can't be eaten. It's poisonous." "Ah. Poisonous." Lao Bai stepped in the water and quickly retreated instinctively. Fengjiu looked at him and said, "This is a kind of underwater creature. When it opens, it looks like a flower and emits a blue fluorescent light. Therefore, it is called the blue fluorescent flower. It has a gallbladder in its body. The blue fluorescent light is emitted from the gallbladder. If it is used as medicine, it can be refined into a medicine that slows down the body." Chapter 2807. "Master, are you planning to catch some?" Lao Bai asked as he looked at the glowing blue flowers in the water. Because he had entered the water, those flowers had already moved away. There were no longer any blue fluorescent flowers where he was. "I'm planning to catch some and extract their gall bladders to refine pills." As Fengjiu spoke, she walked around and set up an array. Then, she took out a silver net from her space and prepared to use this net to catch those blue fluorescent flowers. Lao Bai stood at the side and watched. He did not understand why she had to set up an array. Seeing that her master was taking care of things, he asked, "Master, what should I do?" "Go and pick up some branches. I'll need them later." As Fengjiu spoke, she pointed in one direction and said, "Walk out from there and enter from there." "Master, why do you have to set up an array?" Lao Bai asked as he walked. "Because I don't want anyone to disturb me. Outside the array, people outside cannot see this array." As Fengjiu spoke, she took the net to the other side. She stretched out her hand and spread the silver net. Then, she retracted it and saw that the silver net caught many blue fluorescent flowers. Lao Bai did not ask any more questions. Instead, he did as she said and went back and forth to pick up many branches. He saw his master sitting at the side with a small table in front of her. On the table, there was a jade basin that could be used to add things. It walked forward to take a look and saw that there were already many gall bladders that had been picked out and were emitting a blue fluorescent light. Since it could not do anything else, it just lay on the side and waited. As the sun went down, the night gradually darkened. It saw a luminous pearl placed in front of its master's small table. The gentle and bright light was like a full moon in the sky, illuminating the surrounding vision. Fengjiu was busy from night to day. It was not until the next morning that she took out all the gall bladders of the blue fluorescent flowers and filled 2 small basins. After tidying up the things, she took out other things. These gall bladders were poisonous. Before they could be used as medicine, the toxins had to be removed and the useful things extracted. Once she started refining the pills, she entered a state of concentration. It was as if she would not be tired or hungry. Lao Bai didn't dare to disturb her. He just walked around in his spare time until she finished her work. 2 days later, Fengjiu, who was refining pills by the coast, was controlling the pill furnace. When she saw the blue smoke rising from the pill furnace, she hurriedly retreated and used her sleeves to disperse the blue smoke. When the pills were formed, she extinguished the flame and took out the pills. She saw 3 pills glowing with a blue luster lying quietly in the furnace. She took out the pills and looked at them. She chuckled, I wonder who will be the pill tester for these 3 pills. Master, will you die if you eat it? Lao Bai came over and asked. I won't die, but I don't know what will happen. She smiled and took out a bottle to store the 3 pills. Then, she put away the medicinal powder. She stretched her waist and took out a spirit fruit to eat, saying, We've been here for a few days, but we haven't seen their town yet. Let's go. Let's go to the city and get something to eat before heading back. Chapter 2808. Fengjiu smiled and removed the surrounding array. She leaped onto Lao Bai's back and rode the horse forward. Along the coastal road, the wind blew with the salty smell of the sea. She rode Lao Bai forward. After a while, she saw a small village near the sea. It's getting late. I don't know how far we are from the city. Since there's a small mountain village, let's rest here. Anyway, the itinerary was not tight. She had not had a good rest in the past few days. She might as well rest in this inconspicuous mountain village before continuing. Master, there might not be anything good to eat here. Lao Bai said. He was more concerned about food. How could there not be anything good in a place near the sea? Fengjiu smiled and said, You, on the other hand, can't speak when we reach the front. Otherwise, you'll scare people. Got it. Lao Bai replied and led her forward. When they reached the small mountain village, Fengjiu dismounted from the horse and walked forward. Lao Bai followed behind her. When she entered the small mountain village, she found that there were only a dozen or so families. At the door of these dozen or so families, there were a few families with children playing. There were also a few old people sitting at the door. When those people saw her, they all looked her up and down. Some of them even hid in their houses with their children and closed the door. Seeing this, she walked forward and stopped in front of an old man who was carrying a child. She smiled and said, Old man, I'm just passing by. Can I stay here for the night? Immortal wants to stay here. Of course, of course. The old man stood up nervously. He thought for a while and said, But, I'm afraid we don't have anything good to entertain Immortal here. He had never seen such a dazzling and beautiful woman in red before. However, he knew that only the high and mighty immortals could have such charm. Entertain immortals was something that the people of this small village did not dare to imagine. They had never thought that one day, such an immortal would come here. It's okay. I'm very casual. Fengjiu said with a smile. She looked at the skinny child in the old man's arms who was blinking and looking at her curiously. She took out a few fruits from her space. Here. She handed them to the child. However, the child did not dare to take them and looked at the old man. This won't do, won't do. The bright red fruit was fresh and glistening, exuding a sweet fragrance. People who saw it couldn't help but swallow their saliva, but they didn't dare to take it. It's all right, it's just a few fruits. Take them. Fengjiu said with a smile as he stuffed the fruits into the old man's hands. Trembling, the old man thanked Fengjiu profusely as he invited him into the house. Old White, you stay here. Fengjiu pointed to the side, telling him not to run around. Senior White nodded and didn't speak. He just did as his master said and lay down at the side to rest. The old man brought Fengjiu to the back of the house and said, Immortal, there is an empty room here. Immortal, can you take a look and see if you can stay here? He was a little nervous because his house was rather shabby, and he felt out of place with this beautiful red-clothed immortal. Sure, as long as we can rest. Fengjiu said and asked, Elder, are there only 2 of you in the family? Why do I feel like this place is filled with old people and children? Where are the young people in the village? Chapter 2809. The city lord wants to build a palace and captured many able-bodied men. Even the children's parents were captured and haven't returned for a year. I don't know if they're dead or alive. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu did not ask any more questions. He only comforted the old man, don't be too sad. I think your son and daughter-in-law will definitely return safely. Thank you for your kind words, Immortal, the old man said to Fengjiu, Immortal, please sit for a while. I'll go and prepare some food. When Fengjiu came in, he saw that the old man did not have anything to eat, so he said, There's no need. I'll go to the sea to get some food. The old man was shocked and hurriedly said, You can't do that, Immortal. There are sea monsters in the sea that eat people. It's okay, Fengjiu said and walked out. He called Lao Bai and went to the seaside. When the other old men saw him leave, they walked over and asked, Is the immortal leaving? No, the immortal said that he's going to the sea to get some food, the old man said worriedly. There are sea monsters in the sea that eat people. That's right. Why would the immortal dare to go to the sea? It's too dangerous. Is there no food in your house? I still have some. Ask the immortal to come back. In case there's an accident, another old man said. That's right. I have some too. I'll go and get it for you. Yes, I have some too. The old men held the children in their hands and said. They all expressed that they were willing to take out their food for the immortal who came to stay here. Seeing this, the old man thought for a moment and said, Then let's go and persuade him. Hence, the old men of the dozen or so families followed behind him and shouted. Master, they're following us. Lao Bai looked back and saw that the old men of the small village had all come. He could not help but be surprised. Fengjiu heard the voices behind him and stopped. He turned back and saw that the old men had all come. He asked, Old men, what are you doing? Immortal, there are sea monsters in the sea. You can't go. An old man held the hand of a child and said, his eyes filled with fear. Last time, people from other places took a boat into the sea. I saw it. The boat capsized and the sea monsters ate the people on the boat. Immortal, we have some food over there. If we take it out, it should be enough for you to eat your fill. Another old man said. The sea is too dangerous. We usually don't dare to go there, and we can't go there. Hearing the old people's words and seeing them walking over with their children, some of them not even wearing shoes, she felt warmth in her heart. She smiled and said, It's okay, really. I'm an immortal, I'm not afraid of sea monsters. 2. Are fishing fish. What do you usually eat? We grow some sweet potatoes and wild vegetables behind our houses. That's what we usually eat. Occasionally, we go into the forest to chop some firewood and sell it in the city in exchange for some rice or other food. An old man said. Fengjiu nodded. Okay, I understand. She looked at them and asked with a smile, do you want to come with me? Just watch from the seaside. Later, you can help bring some things back. Chapter 28:10. Alright. Fengjiu smiled and led them to the seaside. The simple folk customs and kind hearts made this place look so beautiful. Although these people were just ordinary people, their kindness was something that many people could not compare to. When they arrived at the seaside, Fengjiu asked them to stand on the shore and not get too close. He also asked Lao Bai to stand guard at the side. Only then did he gather his qi and rush to the surface of the sea. The blue waves sparkled and rippled. Her red dress fluttered on the surface of the water. The dazzling flowers on her dress were like blooming flowers. It was so beautiful and enchanting that the old people and children on the shore could not help but be stunned. The tip of her foot lightly tapped on the surface of the water, creating circles of ripples. She looked into the water and saw some fishes and prawns swimming in the water. Thus, she condensed spiritual energy in her palm and sent it into the water. Bang! Bang bang! The wind from her palm hit the surface of the water, causing countless splashes. The fishes and prawns in the water were splashed up and jumped in the air. With a flick of her sleeve, the fishes and prawns flew to the shore, towards the old people and children who were stunned. Fish, fish. And prawns. So many fishes and prawns. The old people stammered, their old eyes wide open. Their faces were filled with surprise and excitement. Quickly pack them up, quickly pack them up. Ah! I forgot to bring something to pack them up. I'll go back and get it. An old man shouted and hurried back. Quickly, go back home and bring some basins and buckets to pack them up. Quickly. Some of the old people rushed back home to get things to pack them up, while some let the older children run back. It was the first time that the children had seen so many fishes and prawns. They could not help but run back home happily. These are just small things. There will be more later. Lao Bai raised his head proudly and looked at them as he spoke. This unexpected horse opened its mouth, scaring the old man standing beside Lao Bai into retreating. He pointed at Lao Bai and said, It spoke. Lao Bai glanced at them and said, Of course I can speak. I am a mutated divine beast, but my master told me not to speak so as not to scare you. When the old people heard its words, they thought of that immortal. This was the immortal's mount, so it shouldn't hurt them. Thinking of this, they gradually relaxed and collected the fishes and prawns that were scattered on the shore. Not long after, the fish and prawns on the shore were piled up into two piles, one for fish and the other for prawns. Seeing this, the elderly and children giggled happily. Perhaps Fengjiu's movements had attracted the attention of some ferocious beasts in the depths of the sea. Suddenly, a whirlpool appeared on the surface of the sea. The whirlpool grew bigger and bigger, sucking the surrounding water into the bottom of the sea. The sound of the surging sea water attracted the attention of the elders on the shore. Immortal, come back quickly. That's a sea monster. An old man shouted. His originally joyous face turned pale with fear. Hearing that, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and looked at the huge shadow that was rolling the waves in the depths of the water. It was a shadow that was more than 10 meters long, and its figure was very huge. She saw that in the water, the tail of the shadow was swaying, and the water was surging. Chapter 28:11. The elderly and children were so shocked that their hearts almost jumped out of their chests. However, in the next moment, they could not help but widen their eyes in shock. They saw that the immortal in red stepped on the sea monster's head and waved his hand. A cold light shot out and instantly cut the sea monster into two halves. With a scream, blood dyed the sea red and gradually faded away. Lao Bai, Fengjiu called out. Coming. White replied. Then, his silhouette flashed forward. A ray of light flashed, and he transformed from a horse into a white dragon. Then, he plunged into the sea, and threw the huge sea monster to the shore. Dragon, dragon. The elderly widened their eyes in shock. They did not expect that the talking horse was actually a white dragon. Bang! The huge body of the sea monster was thrown up and landed in front of the elderly. They were so scared that they all retreated. Fingzhou returned to the shore and looked at the food he caught. He said, "These things should be enough to eat for a while." He smiled and said to the elderly, "Put these things back. I'll take these two big guys back." Lao Bai said and ran back to the village with a piece of the sea monster's tail. In fact, this was a sea monster. Other than its huge body and 2 rows of sharp teeth, it did not look scary. However, this was a ferocious beast that had become a spirit. Naturally, it was not something that these ordinary people could deal with. The elderly came to their senses and hurriedly took the things back. As the sky gradually darkened, a large pile of food was placed in front of the house of the elderly Fingzhou. "Today, we'll cook some for you to eat. You can share the rest. These fish and prawns can be dried or roasted and eaten slowly." Fingzhou said and walked to the sea monster that had been cut in 2 and cut it into more than 10 pieces. This is the meat of a ferocious beast from the bottom of the sea. Its meat has spiritual energy. Ordinary people can eat it and strengthen their bodies. Here are more than 10 pieces. Each family can take a piece back and eat slowly. Fingzhou gestured for them to go forward and take back the cut ferocious beast meat. However, the crowd stood and did not dare to go forward. "Immortal, these are all caught by you. How can you give them to us? I can't eat so much. Besides, I often eat these things. You can take them." Fingzhou said with a smile. He said, "How about this? Find me a big pot. I'll cook tonight's meal." Hearing this, the crowd hurriedly found a big pot and began to help prepare the fish and prawns. The elders of more than a dozen families took out their own tables and put them together. Some were big, some were small, some were high, and some were low. It looked very strange, but it made everyone excited and expectant. The crowd divided the work. Some cooked the rice, some picked the wild vegetables, and some set the bowls and chopsticks. Even the children sat obediently and did not run around to cause trouble. On the stove made of simple stones, there were big pots. One was boiling fish soup, one was steaming fish, and one was frying prawns. The simple dishes were all done by Fingzhou alone. The elderly helped him by putting the dishes on plates and placing them on the table.